they put inside, we can call this like narcotics inside.
Oh,
yeah.
what kind of narcotic was found in the bottle?
Poppy.
Today, I'm happy to welcome Dominik Plaża to the program, head of the Archaeological Museum in Łódź, Poland.
Hello.
So last time that we spoke, it was deep COVID. I remember we had a meal together, even though we weren't really supposed to.
Yeah.
But we spent the day exploring amazing archaeological sites here in Poland. And you told me about pyramids that I had heard about before, which are claimed to be older than the Great Pyramids in Giza. So obviously we had to meet back up and go a little bit more in depth on this topic. I think when we discuss topics that go back thousands of years, it's so mind-boggling for me that it's hard to have even a basic orientation. So can you lay out the land for us as to what Europe, or what is now Poland specifically, was like at the time that these pyramids rose?
Yeah, these pyramids were built by people who lived in those time. It was around 5,500 years ago. And it's hard to say what kind of land or what kind of society lived at that period of time. And archaeologists always find out funny names. And we call them funnel baker culture because they made the potteries with very characteristic rims, which were in a funnel shape. And this kind of pottery were found in the area between Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Poland, Ukraine, Czech Republic, Germany. So it's like we can say some kind of European Union, Central European Union from Neolithic time.
Just 5,000 years ago?
5,000 years ago. They were in the same shape of culture, visible culture. They made the same pottery. They, in similar way, made stone tools. Probably they were quite similar clothes, we can say. They used in the same style the landscape. Mm-hmm. They were farmers. They grow the same plants. They had similar animals. So this society were one of the maybe first in Europe which made so strong progress in development of their lifestyle, and with the starting to live and use the landscape which in the past were not used so often, we can say. And in the middle of this society, they start to build these pyramids, probably in the western part of Europe, maybe in France, in Belgium. That's the state of research now. And quite quickly, it arrived to Poland.
How can you connect the people to the pyramid based on pottery shards?
Inside those pyramids, we have graves, which had sometimes the grave goods, like flint tools, sometimes pottery fragments or pots, mm-hmm. but they are really rare. They almost were placed in the burials without anything, probably in the clothes and maybe with some organic stuff. But inside the mounds, these pyramids, we can call them, Kujawian pyramids, were also pottery shards. And of course, we date those bones with recent technology or some physical research. And we know that they are from the same age as the settlements which are surrounding the pyramids.
I still can't really comprehend how these people existed between the Netherlands and what is now Western Ukraine, because I thought even 500 years ago, nationalism as we know it now, or national boundaries, weren't really the same. Were these people traveling?
Yes, these people were traveling quite a lot. We know this from exchanging artifacts or goods as well. For example, amber, which is traveling from the Baltic Sea to the southern settlements, which are in the middle of Poland, or different stone tools from different raw material, which are only in few places or only in one place in, for example, Poland. And we know that 600 kilometers west, we find the tools which were made from those stone. From this culture, funnel baker culture, in Poland was very unique discovery made, I think, around 50 years ago, maybe longer. The pot in which was drawn the vehicle, four-wheel vehicle, at that time, that was the oldest image of the truck. Yeah. So we know that at that time, they used wheel trucks, which were, of course, connected with some animals, but they were traveling in that way as well. And they use it for the farming jobs.
Yeah, as well. How can you verify that this drawing wasn't added, 1,000 years later or
we know that in those pyramids, which are standing in the southern Kuyavia, and you can see them, there are also added graves which are younger than 500 years, sometimes 2,000 years. Even in Middle Age, people used those mounds, those huge structures, to do something, to place the burial or to do stuff. So we have different materials, but they are so characteristic. And our knowledge about the funnel baker cultures, Neolithic and archaeology, had around 130, maybe 150 years. So we precisely know from even the very, very small rim or piece of pottery to which culture we should, with which culture we should connect them. Also, stone tools are maybe a little more harder to find out, but there are different raw material which are very easily connected with specific society.
Is there any evidence that these people had communication or kind of trade with cultures beyond Europe?
No. In Europe, yes, but outside Europe, no.
So would you say that they were what we could perceive today as one nation, or were they drastically different depending on the regions?
I think the guys from the Middle Neolithic, those which we call funnel bakers, they were like one nation, in my opinion. As we said, in the spread between Germany, Poland, Ukraine, and they had the same image, outside. So, and the same beliefs, and they did many things in the same aspect. For example, at that time, they started to build the mines for digging stones, the flint. In Poland, we have the UNESCO Museum in Krzemionki,
yes,
which is completely unique. And it was started by those society called funnel baker cultures. And very similar mine is in Belgium. And it was also started at the same time. So this was not only connected with the beliefs in gods and in making the monuments very huge one.
With that in mind, is there any evidence of a hierarchy in the society?
It's very hard to say what was the structure, but the megaliths also suggest something because they made huge grave for single or two people. Yeah, so we can imagine that these guys who were buried beneath the megalithic grave, that was the leaders or the part of the family of the leaders. We've had hundreds of those megaliths. So in the spread of 600 or 700 years of functioning of funnel baker cultures, there should be hundreds of leaders. And maybe it's possible that in each region was the leader for whom could be built the huge grave. And as well, who could organize the group of people who was involved in building those structures, because it was not like in one day the taking few hundreds of large stone to make the frame, to organize lots of ground to put inside, to dig the huge hole for the dead.
So you're implying that the person in the grave probably planned the grave before they died? Maybe that they knew that they have to organize the another megalithic structure for somebody. Yeah? And did you always find one person in one structure, or were there structures that were mass graves, or were there exceptions?
Maybe not mass graves, but we have sometimes few people beneath. But it's not like more than 5 or 6. Mostly that's 1 or 2 graves beneath the long structure.
Men or women?
Mostly men, sometimes women, and very rare children. But recently, the great thing is the genetic studies, which could give us answer if the people which were buried beneath our family or not. We are in a starting of those projects. We will finish in 2 years. But from other archaeological finds, we know that it's possible to find out connection or disconnection between people. And even though we can also find what was the background of those people who were buried beneath the megaliths or in other graves.
Can you also find out if they have descendants?
Yes, maybe even not descendants, but in a little older cemetery, which was from these megaliths around 40 kilometers north, near Brześć Kujawski. We have the around 150 graves, and men and women which were buried in very characteristic style, in Neolithic style, we can say. But in 2 graves, there were buried women, which had the genotype of hunter-gatherers. So they were not from farming society, but they were taken from the society which lived locally around those farmers.
Wow.
So at the time, around maybe 600, 500, they were living 2 societies. One was the farming with long houses and cows, pigs, and cereals. And the other one, hunter-gatherers, who were hunting for deers and lived near lake, fishing. And they were living one to another.
Amazing.
At the end, there is one idea that those 2 societies start to be together, and the funnel bakers were the end of those, process. Yeah.
So that's
one of the explanations.
One of the theories.
The hunters, one of the theories is that the hunters maybe not died, but they spread inside the farmers, and the funnel bakers emerged, and then few hundred years later, they start to build huge...
and took over society.
Yeah.
So we all know from Indiana Jones that being an archaeologist is very exciting.
Yes. It's every day different things happen.
Yeah. But I am curious, behind the scenes, what does it look like to DNA test these corpses?
The best bone, which for now fits, it's the bone which is in the skull near the ear.
Okay.
And if we have well-preserved bones, we have to catch some piece of those bones and give it to the specialist who will extract the DNA. And even that these bones are all the time almost in the machine, because each year we can go deeper and deeper inside those DNA. Good example is this Iceman from Alps, who is from 30 years, more than 30 years in research. And few times the results of DNA studies a little bit change, because our machines are more developed and we can find different aspects. So we can find what kind of, what color of eyes they had, what color of hairs.
What did people 5,000 years ago in Europe look like?
We know maybe not from these funnel bakers. Unfortunately, they place the burials and settlements on the sandy area, which is not very good for preserved of the bones. So we do not have much bones for DNA studies. We've got in our museum the bones from these megalithic graves, and in 2 years we should have results. First, almost results of funnel baker culture, but we know we have results from this society which was a little bit older, and they were guys with mostly blue eyes, rather light hair. Of course, we connect this with the anthropological analysis of bones, so they were not high, and they were in the Neolithic genotype, which is connected with territory of Czech Republic, Hungary, and go to the south of Europe, and is connected with this spread of Neolithization which arrived from Southern Europe.
Let's talk about the pyramids specifically. I feel like I have a little bit of a context
Yeah.
for the people who built them now. What do they consist of?
They had several parts, we can say. Yeah? It is connected, in our opinion, with the chronology of building the grave. So the first, the digging of the grave. Then probably they made the stone frame with large stone or boulders, we can call them, the huge one. Then they probably placed the dead member of their society. They also covered this body with different kind of soil connected with lakeland, with different element of peat bogs, which were inside. And then probably they covered everything with soil, which made the mound. But in several of megalithic pyramids, we can call them, we found as well the specific chamber, which was in the highest part of the megalith, which was a small room just outside the main grave, to which was access from outside. So we can call them like the cult chamber. So that was mostly the same elements in all graves, but we do not have two exactly the same. All are different.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they were length like between 40 and 115 meters. So they
rather
were
large.
Huge one.
Yeah,
huge one. Huge.
Were they sourced locally? And could the same types of boulders be found at these pyramids across Europe?
No, they are locally, and as well, they are located in the area where the last ice glaciation was on the Polish territory. It finished around 20,000 years ago and go up to Norwegia or the northern Europe. And after the ice glaciation, huge stones were left in this territory. So they had not far from the place where they built there are the cemeteries of those megaliths, local stones which were brought by those ice glaciation. And in different parts of Poland, they are mostly similar because the glacier left the same stone in Pomerania, in Great Poland, in northern Germany. They are almost the same.
So they're consistent
yes.
throughout. And do you find any artwork, any jewelry, any details of humanity besides the earthworks?
But at the stone or
in the grave or in the vicinity?
No, not much actually, because as I said, they did not give the goods. We had huge luck during our excavation in Gaj Stolarski. We found the copper dagger, which was given to the gentleman who was placed in this burial. So maybe that was not like a jewelry, but rather the symbolic knife or some. Maybe that's the answer for this question about the important person or the chief or the leader. Yeah, the copper at the time is completely unique. So it was very hard to get it. They could not make it by themselves here, so they had to take this copper or from the northern part of Alps or from the territory of today's border between Romania, Hungary, and Czech Republic, maybe.
And where was the rest of society laid to rest?
We don't know, unfortunately. Our excavation had, just as I said before, the 150 years, and we almost don't have the normal grave, the regular graves, not megalithic. So we don't know what happened with them. We have lots of settlement in many places, but there are almost no single grave.
Wait, so you found evidence of structures and settlements from that time?
Yes.
But you can't find evidence of the people?
Yes, we can we can't find the evidence of graves of the people. Yeah?
So what's the theory behind that?
We don't know. That's very hard to explain. Maybe we have bad tools and we are still don't have luck to find the idea where they could be placed. The settlements were on the sandy dunes and some soil which is not very good for preservation of bones. So if they made the graves without any stone structure, these bones could not preserve till recent time.
Years.
So maybe they just disappeared during 5,500 years. We sometimes think maybe they placed them in the lakes because the lakes were very important. And the peat bogs, as I said, they placed the peat bog soil inside the grave for these leaders in megaliths.
Sure.
In almost all of the graves, we have the dark soil and the wild structure. I don't know how to call this in English, but they are really specific, the filling of the grave above the body. So maybe when they dug out the pit, they placed people inside, and we don't have the pit bog excavation almost, so we could not find them.
So basically we have to drain the lake and then do the excavation to figure it out.
Yes. Maybe they hung them on the trees.
Okay, yeah, it's possible.
There could be, they made something which did not give the structure inside the ground, underground.
Yeah, that is very interesting. What were their settlements like?
They had rather not very big place with wooden houses. Also not huge one. That which we excavated around these cemeteries of megalithic graves, they had like maybe 1 hectare, a few houses, few elements of some fireplaces or some ovens for making potteries or some traces of different buildings which we don't know for which were done. And a little bit different it looks like in the southern Poland, like in Kraków area or Sandomierz, where we've got the settlements which had around 3-4 hectares. They were used for the bigger society in one area. Sometimes they are placed in some defense location, in the hills on the top. So they are quite elastic in the taking the best advantage of the landscape which they have.
Sure.
For people in lowland near the Wietrzychowice, quite important was to be not very close to the lake, but also not far. We've got the elevation on which they mostly place their settlement. And it looks like for one megalithic cemetery, there is like 6-7 these middle range settlements, which are maybe not surrounding. It's not like that in the middle is the cemetery, but there are some gaps between the settlements, and in many places, somewhere around those group of settlements is the cemetery of the megalithic graves.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I drive around Europe quite a lot and also travel by train. Sometimes I see mounds in the middle of a farm field with trees on it. They look a little bit off to me. And I'm curious through the eyes of an archaeologist. Are you able to kind of take it apart and imagine what might have been under that mound?
Yeah.
How often does it go back 5,000 years?
Not very often, but in each time they made a little different shape of the mound. A little different elements are added to those mounds. So it's possible to find out just from the short view from which period it could be.
So I'm not wrong.
You are not wrong.
There's something to that,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And tell me, is the farmer forbidden from plowing that part of the field? Because that's the other thing I never understood. How does that mound in the middle of a farm field make it into the modern day?
That's I think in different mounds, different story. But when we were walking, because each year we make the field walking studies in the Kujawia, in this area of our mounds, and we know where they are standing in the middle of the field with the trees above, and sometimes we talk with the farmer. And I remember once we asked the young man, like we, why you didn't destroy this? He said, my grandfather told me that that's important place and I have to keep it. I know that I could take some money from European Union for refounding the farming stuff, but and he said that in 30s there was one archaeologist who told his grandfather that this is the mound which could have 5,000 years, and they give it to his father, to him. And in area where the archaeologists had the long history and they cooperate with local society now, it's easier to protect those kind of structure. And it's much harder in the different areas where they are just discovered. And of course, the forest national, how to call the company, which protects forest in Poland, is one of the best protector, because even when they cut the trees, sometimes they exchange the forest in 70 or 80 years. They rather not destroy the different structure which are inside the forest, and they cut the forest in different times. But in 50s and especially in 30s and 20s, when the Poland emerged again after 123 years of the time where we are disappeared from the maps, they cut lots of trees and they show off many different aspects. And one of story was the discovery of the Wietrzychowice. The owner of this place in 30s decided to cut the tree, but the information goes to the Konrad Jażdżewski, who was the excavator of mound, of the first mound in 1935. He quickly arrived to this guy and told him that he could not destroy because the people who are buried will come during night and make something bad for him.
I think it's human nature as well. I mean, you see something like that, you can just feel that something is... It's like a movie in real life, you know. There's like this haunted feeling about it. That's the best way I could describe it.
Yeah. That's emotion. Something hidden inside.
Yeah, exactly. But now I guess in Europe, if you should destroy something like that, you'd have a lot of problems. You're not even allowed to metal detect here, right? I mean, it's hard. They take it very seriously.
Yeah.
These pyramids were a massive discovery, but you keep looking for more. What are you looking for beyond this?
For us, the idea which we arrived around the Wietrzychowice megaliths were to find the builders of those structures, because from the maps, from the history of archaeology, there was no settlements. And we just want to check if that's true, that they are standing in the neighborhood without any settlements. They had some magic ideas hidden, and they were like the border, which was the gate to the Kujawia, where we have lots of settlements, and the funnel bakers are living north from that place. Nothing completely had happened, because we found few hundreds of settlements, and to build such a huge structure, you have to have lots of people. So that is one idea, to still search for these builders. And because we are in the field, we found a lot of different stuff. So the oldest artifacts which we found had 12,000 years, from the deer hunters who lived in the late Paleolithic time. We have several, around 50 camps from the Mesolithic society, which lived around 7.5 or 8,000 years ago. Then that was quite original and quite shocking for us, that we found the earliest farmers who arrived to Polish territory, nowadays Polish territory, around 6.5 or 7,000 years ago. And then the funnel baker culture and all others. Actually, in those areas surrounding the megalithic graves, we have all archaeological finds from all history. It's not true that people lived there 12,000 years ago, because there are huge gaps between spending some time in this area. But when this first farmer arrived around 7,000 years ago, almost all the time somebody was there in different place, farther from the lake or closer, moving outside, coming back. But people are living there for many, many years.
So one thing that I've noticed about European history is that Europeans are very, very, let's say, proficient in killing each other. Is there any evidence of war?
From the funnel bakers, we don't have evidence because we don't have bones. But I told you about those cemeteries with the farmers and hunter-gatherers ladies, which are on those cemeteries. And in several graves, guys who were buried had holes in their heads, in their skulls, made by the horn axe, which were also buried with them mostly because they were warriors. So if we have the guys who were buried with a horn axe, with the bone knife, with the
you could
arrows,
assume a lot.
that's easy answer. That they were like policemen, we can say, from the time. So they had to protect their settlement against some other people. From that place, which is close to Brześć Kujawski, we've also had the evidence of firing those places once. Maybe it's we suppose that maybe all settlement, which was quite large, that was around, I think, 2 hectares, with large houses. Many people live there.
Just torched.
Yes.
When it comes to the animal bones found around those sites, what kind of companions did they have? What kind of food were they eating?
As I said, the funnel bakers were farmers, so we mostly found the cows, cattle, pigs. They make cheese. Sometimes hunting, but it's not very popular at that time. Cereals, they use, of course, the old landscape, so mushrooms probably. But going back again to those society which had war and torching their settlement, we found at the first farmers some percentage of wild animals. So the cooperation between farmers and hunters who lived all around could exist because they had these pigs, cows, and stuff like that. And the hunters hunt for deers, beavers.
I want to go back to the pottery for a minute. Yeah. What was it used for? And tell me about the discovery of the shard with a drawing inside of it.
The pots were used for keeping stuff like cereals or some food inside, also to produce some probably soups or something like this. And they had different shapes, different also elements inside, because when they make the pot from the clay, they add some stuff inside, crushed potteries, small stones, sometimes bones, sometimes shells. So when we look at the belly of the pottery, we see the small white dots, and that's the elements of shells which helped in firing the pot. I think they did not make the special pots for the grave like nowadays we make urns, for keeping people. But they had one, is very specific pot. I will tell you later what is it.
I need to know if there are any outrageous theories about what these pyramids were for. I know that I suspect that people like you could get canceled for even speculating on that. People talk about the pyramids in Egypt, and if they go a little bit too far, they're like shunned from the academic community. But I can't help but wonder if perhaps there are some other ideas out there.
Sometimes we think about the astrological explanation because they are placed on some way of some stars or rising sun. So they could be used in the specific time of the year to do something. Maybe they were like the calendar to show in different part of the year again when we should start do some farming or where we should stop, something like this. Another explanation was that they were the borders. And especially this idea is when we do not have many settlements because they stand in the empty neighborhood without any sign of
that makes
society.
Sense.
So they were like signs for other society. When you are going north, south, whenever, and you see that kind of mound, you have to be careful because you are entering our territory. And then
that actually makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
So let me take it up like one level further. Was there the concept of taxation then? Could there have been that if you cross this boundary, you have to pay taxation? And I only ask you that because I found out that in large castles serve that very function in Europe. If you came into the territory of the castle, you had to pay a tax.
If they could be border of our region, maybe.
If they exchanged money, of course.
No, but if we agree with that, the guys who had the mine for the flint, they dug out, make the tools, and goes like a trading group with this vehicle. And they just opened the door and said, that's the shop. Yeah, come on. Yeah. We exchange something with me. You give me the beaver skin. I'll give you the few axes made of the flint. Yeah. So maybe when they enter the area of those special group in Kujawia, they had to pay something like a tax. But another explanation is that the group of mounds were mostly made on the, maybe not the top, but high elevation in the area. We suppose that at the middle time of funnel bakers, they mostly cut all trees. So they're like there was not so many forest. And those kind of the highest mounds could be as well the communication function of those. If you could see another group of mounds and another group of mounds 3 kilometers further and another one in 7 kilometers and another one in 3 kilometers, so using fire, for example, you can communicate. Yeah. You can give some signs that something can happen.
I mean, perhaps it was multifunctional.
Yeah.
Like everything we do is inside of our phone now.
Yes.
Like you can't go on an airplane. You can't pay for parking, nothing without the phone.
Yes.
So maybe this was their version of that in a sense, especially if you're telling me that like most of human nature as we know it today, like in a basic way, was intact back then. So I could really believe the concept that this was a boundary and it was a grave. Maybe the boundary was even known as the guy who was buried in there and it was a satellite and everything. No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to joke around too much. So if most of the bones couldn't make it 5,000 years, do you imagine that there's technology they had back then, which is not recorded as well, that also, was lost to time?
But technology in skills or something like...
Technology and tools and the things that they used to enable their lifestyle.
Yeah, so I'm the specialist in flint stone, in flint knapping. Maybe not, I'm not the good knapper, but I make some refitting of flint tools. And in my opinion, in the funnel baker culture, they lost the skills of making their own flint tools just near the house. In the older generations, in those first farmers, Mesolithic hunters, Paleolithic hunters, deer hunters, they made stone tools by themselves. And in funnel bakers, they start to buy those things which were prepared somewhere else. So I think in a few generations, they lost the skills, the mobility of making stone tools. Of course, next 2,000 years, they used flint, in different aspects, but they could not make the large blade for some knives and reshape them. So that was one kind of technology. And of course, in each generation, they added something, and probably they lost, but it's very hard question which different aspect of lifestyle disappeared.
Is there anything that we didn't touch on that's interesting for the viewer?
I think we could say as well about one kind of pot, which is quite important for those society. We call them a collar bottle.
Okay.
It looks like if you know how the bottle of vodka looks like, it had the collar near the rim. And these bottles, the small container, and they put inside, we can call this like narcotics inside.
Oh,
yeah. That's
an interesting detail.
Sometimes they put it to the megalithic graves as a good as well. So one of the explanation also could be that was not the leaders beneath the megaliths, but we can call them magician,
like a shaman or something.
Shaman or some like the priest, maybe leader in this
like spiritual
life.
That
yes.
makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
What kind of narcotic was found in the bottle?
Poppy.
So they're taking opioids.
Yes. That's opiates. Yeah.
Jeez, how did you not start with that's crazy?
Because I have to keep it to the end. But that's a really specific shape. They were only made by those society, and during chemical and physical analysis, they found this.
Okay, so they were importing flint because they forgot how to make their tools, and they were probably exporting the drugs. By the way, that's what we're having fun. I'm speculating.
We are not in Colombia or other territory.
I'm just thinking live here. That is wild.
Yes.
Was this found in places beyond the grave site?
Yes. Yeah. I found by myself a few of those collar bottles in the settlement as well. But that's not like they are everywhere. We found these collar pots in settlement. But we have in our museum, in our permanent exhibition, we had, because now it's closed, unfortunately, but we had around, 8 maybe of those completely saved.
So do you think that it was used like for medical purposes, to ease people in pain, for recreation, as a spiritual?
In the Wierzchowice, I left the best stuff at the end.
Yeah.
We have also beneath one of the grave, the fragments of pots, animal bones, human bones, flint in the rather dark layer beneath the grave. So the idea of our colleagues from the past was that was like the Celtic festival or
Celtic.
Some festival organized during the funeral, and they break the pots. They maybe have some like singing, and in the maybe the positive style doing that, and maybe they first drink those stuff or used the poppy juice, and then spend time and break the bones and make this trash layer with different aspects. So maybe they also use some mushrooms to prepare some stuff, and this magic or spiritual way of life, of part of life of family Beaker was also quite important for them, which could be explained that was the first time when they, during building those megaliths, they could gather large part of society, maybe all of people. And it looks quite similar to Egyptian way of life. When they make the huge pyramid, they also should gather a lots of people.
But that is a wild detail.
Yeah.
I think that means a lot.
Yeah.
Tell me, this was happening in relatively the same time as the pyramids in Egypt. Actually, these ones are older.
Older, yeah.
So where do you think the trend of building Where do you think the trend of building pyramids actually started? Do you think that it just kind of emerged everywhere? Or do you think that there was some central place and it spread?
No, I don't think so. It's central place. Like in central place, it's Northern Europe and then goes down to Egypt. No.
So they didn't have like their Vatican of pyramids?
No, I don't think so. I think that
You said there were no stupid questions.
No, that's not stupid question, but I think that it maybe we will find the older idea of pyramids, which spreads in some way and go to the northern part of Mediterranean Sea. Yeah? But I think that when society developed and they go to some level, they have to do something to gather people, because as well when they involved these funnel bakers, involved the hunter-gatherers, and they had this developed style of life with animals and food and everything. So they grow and grow and grow. So they had to do something with those mass of people who lived to give them some job to do. So they made the megaliths each time, yeah. And they were gathered by those leaders, yeah, to do something.
It sure makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I still really wonder how the concept spread. I mean, you mentioned communication.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever checked how far you could communicate like one mound to the next? Maybe it went all the way to Egypt.
Maybe not.
I'm sorry, but
no, to Egypt not, of course. But there were several scientific projects when they placed in the map on which elevation, from which you can see another one. Maybe not in Poland. I remember from Czech Republic one of that kind of project, and it covered quite large area. So why not? That could be the
it could be both things. You could communicate long distances and have it as your center of community,
and
do your drugs there, and
look for some astrological stuff, because
also makes sense.
This leader know that when the sun rises, here you have to put the plant, because the winter is completely.
It meant so much more back then.
Yeah.
The calendar.
Yeah, the calendar.
I mean, now we have it's a heated room, it's an air conditioned room, but we don't care. But back then, you literally had to make your sustenance.
And the archaeology, we have to all the time look at the context and what happened before, what happened after. Yeah. And that could be the one of the last question. What happened after the funnel bakers? They changed, we can say like this, to we call them global amphora culture, another society, but which was not settled, but they start to be the guys who had the large horde of cows and goes with them through
ranchers.
Yes, and those globular amphora culture was the group which built the deepest parts of the Krzemionki flint mine near the Sandomierz. They extract those beautiful and prepare those beautiful axes, send them to around 800 or 1,000 kilometers from the mine to the North Germany
so they had a trade
Lithuania.
Network.
That was trade network. They go around. So we could say that these trade networks, which were started by first farmers, still exist.
Yeah.
The way of life changed. They had different style of pottery. They had different style of graves. For example, they start to place animals in the grave, which did not happen during funnel baker culture. Yeah.
Okay. So it just evolved and evolved.
Yeah.
Can you take us up to modern day in the evolution?
From what's happened next? No, it's hard. But when the amphoras finished, maybe they were stopped by the guys which arrived from Eastern Europe on horse riders, and they finished with Neolithic. And then the Bronze Age starts, which developed in Poland. The end of the Bronze Age is the Biskupin. Yeah. So all the time something was growing, we can say. And of course, looking for this neighborhood of Wietrzychowice, we do not have much Bronze Age settlement. So they did not use that kind of territory. They moved to other place. We've got a little bit, but we have several peaks in that place. The one peak is the funnel bakers. Then we've got huge peak in early Middle Age. We have lots of settlements from the Iron Age called with Roman period. So when the Colosseum was in Rome, in area of Wietrzychowice, we had several settlements, quite large, with cemeteries. They buried people, put to the pots. That was the kind of making graves. So that everything changed. Why they stopped to bury people with body and then buried? I don't know. Nobody knows why that happened. But yeah, and then when the Middle Age was developed, they start to organize the village which exists till now. So from 1,000 years, we met in Łęczyca.
Yeah,
Łęczyca had more than 1,000 years of existence in the same place. People were living, buried, and do everything.
Dominik, thank you so much for traveling here and sitting down with me today. I want you to leave me with one answer.
All right.
They left us pyramids 5,000 years ago. What will we be remembered for in 5,000 years?
Trash. No, it's very hard to say because we make the stuff from more strong material. Yeah. So after us will be many things left for future generation. But I many times ask myself with the same question: what will left after me when I will be buried? For example, yeah, when we had this sad story that we have to bury our parents or friends, what will left after us? Element of glass, something from the tooth which will be which we've got, the metal elements from zip, from shoes. What we will have in our pocket? Maybe we will be placed with telephone, so battery will be left, and how it will be interpreted in 5,000 years? That's the question, yeah. And we had the funny story that sometimes people want to be buried in different clothes or in something different. So from the generation of 20th century, people will be buried in some kind of clothes, and we could date them, yeah, because they will have the buttons with something. But if I would be buried with this sign, that would be the question: what is it? If it's the sign of the magician or some priest or some leader.
But I suppose my main takeaway is that we should be buried with metal if we want to be remembered at all. Dominik, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.